for our second half now, we're going to go to jolly old England for the entire half and play, again, a few names that you probably don't know too well. We are going to begin with Geoffrey Bush, who was born in 1920 and he dies in 1998. He wrote this trio in 1955. He started piano when he was 7 years old and was a very good singer. In fact, he was one of the boy singers in the Salisbury Cathedral Choir, a very prominent choir in England. So he has a little bit of that traditional English church music that seeps its way into some of his music. So he really did not have formal training as a composer. He started doing it in his teens and early 20s. But when he started writing music, it was the late 30s, early 40s, and a lot of music at that time was very avant-garde and dissonant and atonal, and he wasn't writing music that way. And so when he showed some of his pieces to the teachers, they were looking for that kind of music. They said, oh, this is boring stuff with melody. We don't want that. And so he threw away a lot of his early music, which he later regretted because he thought it probably was pretty good. He ultimately, during World War II, was a pacifist and a conscientious objector, so he did not go to war. He ended up being a warden at the Hostel of the Good Shepherd, which was a children's home in Wales. He then, after the war, ended up teaching at Oxford University, but not for the full-time students. He was the director of the extramural program, what we would call continuing studies, for those who sort of were coming back to get degrees later in life. And he really developed that whole program there at Oxford, especially for the music history. You can get a degree now, even if you're not a fully matriculated student. He wrote a couple overtures and symphonies that have won awards, including the Yorick Overture, was awarded the Royal Philharmonic Society Prize in 1949. But he mostly wrote a lot of music that nobody knows about, which is always really sad when you're a composer. He wrote several different song cycles. He once said, "It is distinctly discouraging for a composer who has written, as I have, nearly a dozen song cycles, to find that, far from having sung them, most singers do not even know they exist." So it's really a hard thing for these composers. We just discovered this sort of out of the blue, and it's a wonderful piece. You'll hear the first movement begins off with this kind of fanfare-like quality, very dramatic, but then it goes into a much more lighter romp through the first movement. And then we get this beautiful second movement where the bassoon again gets this wonderful theme to start us off, and a very poignant theme. That comes to a brief end. It doesn't fully end, and then we get just a very quick recap of the first movement, and it ends very sort of fading away in the distance. You don't even know it's over when it ends. So this is the Geoffrey Bush Trio from 1955.